Okay, all. Now, we're just going to do a simple armor piece of something. Let's see, we're just going to open. Now, what I do, depends on what mesh you're working with or whatever. For me, it's usually just I take import a wavefront object, an OBJ file, wherever you have it. I have mine usually in this area here. Let's go ahead and let's see, we're wanting to do an armor, so we'll take an armor here. And we've got a snow bear armor that I did for Rusty. And we got Kale armor here. Let's pull that one up. We got the OBJ with the UVs on it, and we're pull it in. All right, now Control 1 to see it. You know, and the reason why you're doing Control 1, which I know in Blender, is the back view. Everything in Skyrim is flipped around backwards for some reason, and so you want to do the back view is always your front. It's just the way it is. Now you notice here that it looks really kind of janky. It's like all rough, you know, like it's got extra edges or whatever. That's because when you import it in there, it doesn't keep the shading that you had when you modeled it. So what you got to do is you got to hit this and say set smooth shading. Now, one thing also I do, you'll notice it's all one solid piece. That's something to do with Blender's exporting as an OBJ file, importing as an OBJ file. It usually just smashes them all together, even though you're not going to want them in one piece. You're going to want them to be separate pieces, or at least some of it separate pieces. Like we're going to definitely want the bracers to be separate, the necklace to be separate, the hood to be separate, and the boots to be separate. You're going to want those things to be individual pieces. Now, on this one, I think I actually separated a little more just in case you want to be even more obsessive about it and say, oh, I want this piece to be considered the body piece, and then this piece to be some other body part, you know, so forth and so on. Anyway, you put it in like this, and now you notice it's got materials on it. Now, you have to have materials on it, or it will not export the UVs once you're done. And this is a very good step to make sure you take care of first off, because if you don't take care of this step, you're going to be regretting it later when you're like, oh man, the UVs, I completely forgot. Because I don't know how many times in my early days of messing with this stuff that I would forget to set this up, and I would have a model and it would be invisible because it had no UVs in game. So now I don't know. It's like I don't know if the setup is correct on this like this. So I always, just to be on the safe side, I just delete it back to 0 and then add my own new one, right? And then you take it and you click on your little ball here for shading, and you come over here and you click on Add New Texture Type. Then you go to Map Input, and you want UV, because Orco, I don't know what that is. But UV is what the games use, so you do that. And then you come over here where it looks like a little cheetah pattern, and it's the texture button. You click it, and it gives you this texture type. And you're going to go, and you want to stay matte, because that's what we're doing right now, because that's what it's a material. And you click on the none here, and you go up to image, because we're doing that's what matte type we're doing, because that's what you need for Blender to make the UV stay on the mesh. This texture, whatever texture you select here, though, doesn't matter. It could be a completely blank texture, because it's not going to be what's on the mesh. You know, when you send it, it's just allowing the UVs to stay on the mesh. I don't know why it does it that way. It's just the way that it does it. Now, apparently, I think if you use the NIF exports for the newer Blender with the new scripts, I've not messed with them, but because in my opinion, the last time I did mess with them, they didn't work quite as well as this system did. But apparently, you don't have to do some of these steps. But these are the steps you have to do with Blender 2.49b. All right, now I just go and like I said, any picture that you have, I have this one here that's like really low poly, so it doesn't add a lot of extra data to the NIF when you export it. And you select it, and then you go. It should look like this, and then when you click on the little ball again, it's going to be like that. And then you click back into edit mode for editing and all that stuff. And then you're going to want to import whatever you're skinning this to. Now, in this case, it's obviously going to be a man's body because this is Kale's armor. So you just go into your pre-setup. Now, if you've checked out my tutorials on getting NIFs ready for Blender, which I may have to do here for you guys too, I'll ask Rain. You have to set up the NIFs first, and I create a folder, which is my mod folder, which is as you see, all these blend body parts, blend meshes, blend stuff. I rename a NIF so that it'll be in the format that Blender needs without overwriting a correct NIF, so that I can always go back to the original NIF and say, okay, this is what it looked like, or this is the texture it needs, or whatever, because you have to do a lot of editing to the original NIF before you can import it into Blender. So anyway, we're going to want blend male body. And we're going to also want male head. So we're going to want first, I think it's going to be max size first, because I always try to make it large first because it's easier to scale down than it is to scale up. I don't know why, but that's usually the way I do it. So we'll just import the male body. Boom. Okay, so now see how large it is? Now I knew that was going to happen because for some reason on my earlier works when I made models, they were always, and according to everybody else, they were like huge in their files, but they're tiny, tiny things when you're working with Skyrim for some reason. But now that I've changed a different thing in my modeling, and they come out about the right size. But this is something that happened in my earlier models. And if it happens to you, all you do is go S for scale, and then 10 because that's the size it increases to. And see, look, now it fits perfectly on the body. Okay, obviously I must have actually modeled this with a less muscular body. It's obviously the large body, but I must have had a different musculature. So we'll have to do some tweaks, but I'll do that in a second. First things first, we look at this. Now, we don't need the male body's underwear. That's not necessary for anything, so we'll just get rid of that. Might help if I also do now, as you notice how it's got the weird jankiness on it too. It's for some reason. Some of the Skyrim, this is because this is a vanilla body model, that I brought in. Some of the Skyrim stuff doesn't keep the shading either. I don't know why. Only some of the Skyrim stuff doesn't keep shading. Because there are several items you can import and it'll keep the shading every time. So I don't know. And you don't, now on this one, because of the arms here, see how you're going to want to have, if you're not keeping the body, and like, okay, if this is just going to be for skinning purposes, then you don't need to put a material on it. But if in this case, since it's actually going to be there in the outfit sometimes, like if it's going to be there, like as far as I can tell, you're going to have these arms in the thing, right? And so, well, actually, there's a couple ways, but we'll just assume that you're going to need this arm, all right? I've already made this model before. I forget what way we went with it. I don't know. We just made this as a cover. Because, like, you could make it where it's just a cover and you don't have to have it be actually taking the body's spot. But we're going to assume that it's actually going to take the body spot. And it's going to actually take the body spot, and so therefore you're going to need this arm. And now, whenever you make any model, armor piece, there's only a couple of them that you can make that don't require you to need a 0 and 1. That's why I imported the 1. I usually model everything in 1 because, like I said, it's easier to scale things down to fit the smaller body than it is to scale them up to fit the larger body. And let's get back to it now. All right. So you want to put a material on this body, and then you're going to do the same steps you did before. Add new type, map, UV, and then go in the texture thing and image. Now, because we selected one already, we can just go like this and click this little arrow, and there, bam, it's right there. And back. All right. Now, one thing I've noticed with some of them is that wrists, you're gonna have to start separating things now that you don't want skin to the body. Well, we're not gonna want the boots skin to the body, so we're gonna go click on, and you click on a bird on the boot, and you just go like that. Press Control L, and it'll select the entire boot. Oh, if you're wondering why my mesh is see-through on old Blender, it automatically assumes you want it to be see-through, and so you have to click this little square thing, and it makes it solid again, so you can't see through it. I actually kind of like the fact that it's see-through because it makes me see where I'm collecting. That way I don't have to always go into wireframe. But that's my preference. You don't have to do it that way, whichever is your preference is how you work it. Anyway, let's select the boots, and we'll go ahead and we'll just separate the boots off. Selected boots. Now, we're going to rename the boots because they're going to still say that, but now they're going to add a 0.01. Well, we don't want that. So we're going to go Kale. Sorry, again, I can't type today. Armor boots. And then just, sorry, I didn't mean to go in edit mode. Come back here, you. All right, and then tab over, and then just name it boots. That's what I do. All right, now, and then we're going to come up here, and we want the hood off. Control L, P for, yeah, and then that's how you separate, by the way, is P select. I keep forgetting that you guys don't know anything about Blender, or many of you won't, so that's the code. The code is P for, just tap P, and you can remove it. And a step I nearly forgot, since we're actually going to use the bodies, we want to go Alt-P, clear parent. That way, nothing is no item is any longer attached to this skeleton. Now, the skeleton is very important. You want to keep that, but you don't want it attached to anything right now because it'll cause problems when you have to reattach everything to it at the end. So it's best to just clear parent off of that mesh so that you don't have to worry about anything being attached to the skeleton anymore. All right, now that we've separated the hood, and now we're going to rename the hood Kale Armor Hood, and then just name it Hood, and there you go on that. And then we're going to need the necklace off. Necklace is going to be a little more tricky to click on, so let's just go ahead and get the bracers off real quick because we don't need them part of it. And then we just go bracers. We'll name them Kale Armor Bracers, and then bracers. All right. And now the necklace is, like I said, the necklace is going to be a little more tricky. It's got lots of little intricate parts and stuff that we want. So you're going to have to actually put some, you're going to go click, 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 and a lot of clicking here. But fortunately enough, you only have to click on one vert really to do what you need to do. Since after you get that one vert clicked, you can go Control L and it selects it. Oh, I missed some. Okay, but I only missed a couple, so it's like it's a pretty simple thing. And then we just do that. Control L again. There we go. We got the whole necklace. And it's good sometimes to do this. Just push G and move it around. And I tell you right now, I warn everybody, I am the worst tutorial person in the world. I do so many things just by rote, by habit, that I don't remember what I'm doing half the time. I'm just doing it, and I forget to tell you. But here we go. I should put on key tracking. I don't know how to do that though, so we'll figure that out later. This is pretty much just a trash tutorial that I'm starting just to show, I don't know, because I have nothing else to do. All right, now as I was mentioning earlier, we can't really skin it yet because look at this. Look at that. His belly is sticking through. No, we can't have that. Now there's a couple options here. The lazy way would be to just select the mesh and start deleting these verts. Because we don't, like, for example, we won't need the lower body at all. The lower body is completely covered by the pants. So if you take the boots off, no lower body, see? So we can go ahead and, because this is how, Bethesda does it too. That way you save on rendering processing, because you just get these legs out of the way and just blam, they're gone. And now you just have the upper half to deal with. And now some of these upper half verts really don't need to be there. We could actually delete them because they are just in the way. But whenever you start deleting them, you have to delete the same number of verts on the low mesh as you do on the high mesh. It's very important because if they don't match up, the number of verts do not match up, the low and high mesh will not do the blending process that the game has designed for it, so that the mesh can be any size. So it's very important to make sure that you delete the same ones. That's why I'm only going to delete the lower half, because I know exactly how many verts that is. It's the same verts, bam, you deleted them. But, of course, I'm getting ahead of myself because I forgot to do one thing. So now I've deleted the verts of the lower half, which was not very smart of me. There we go, it's back. All right, now, because you know what I forgot to do? I'm getting ahead of myself. I forgot to skin the lower half, so we need to skin it. But first, before we do that, again, we got to get these things shaped. Now, this is where one of the only times that I use sculpting. There's a sculpt tool here. I use it, and I'll sculpt. And you go down here, and it's got these multrites, which I'm not 100% sure where they are, but there's something I don't mess with. And then you want to just draw it a little bit here, because this is not coming out far enough. So we're going to draw it up. Don't get too crazy with it, but you draw it a little bit. Now see what we just did there. You see, this is a layered item. Now by drawing it the way it did, I actually pulled the other layer side. That's one of the reasons why I don't really mess with sculpting too often, because I don't want to do that. So we may have to say, just stick down to here with the sculpt tool where it's not layered item like that. Now again, some of these things are just, you're going to have to play with it. You're going to have to touch it and, see it for yourself type thing. Now we're going to need to subtract something here. Something's sticking out. Nope, I was wrong. No, that needs to still be add there. There we go. There we go. All right, oh, that's good. That's good. All right. Okay, now we need to go into edit mode. When you could just tab and you're like, oh, you're in edit mode. But if I do that, I'll tend to forget that I am in sculpt mode when I come out of edit mode. So I always go back to object mode, and then, or generally speaking, I always go back to auto mode. Except for weight painting, sometimes I'll stay in it because it's more efficient. Now, see, there's a problem right here, which I don't know. I must have had a different body when I was modeling it. I don't know what body I used, but it must have had a slightly different belly, because I would have caught this when I was making the model in the first place. It's good to have measurement things when you're modeling, but there's always going to be something you might have missed or what have you, or something that just didn't quite work with the way you had the body set up or whatever, and that would be something that you just subtract or change in the skinning process. And again, I've already made this whole thing, so I'm not going to get super obsessed about being, oh, it's perfect. You just know that you have to do that, and that you have to get the thing straightened up. And so let's come back here, and we're going to need to do the sculpt tool back here as well. Like I said, again, we're not needing to do a whole bunch of perfect, because this model's already done. I've already went through all of this before. I'm only even touching up on it because I didn't have anything else to work on, and I just picked something random to show you. Now see, that's one of the reasons why I don't like the sculpt tool. It does that sometimes. Now admittedly, the newer version probably has much better sculpt tools. They don't do that quite so badly. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what it's doing there. Let's go into edit mode and look. It is pulling verts from wrong part of the mesh to the front, because to make sure the mesh wasn't see-through on that, I gave it another side there. What on earth did I do? I don't remember having all this problem when I was doing this originally. I must have really... I don't recall changing the body types, but I must have at one point in time changed body types. If I did, it would have been for some project or another, because I don't really care. At least, I don't really play the game that much anymore. It's been quite a while since I've actually played Skyrim for very long. I'll get in and I'll test a mod or something like that, and then I'll get out again. And again, some of the stuff doesn't really matter. I've already done all this, so it doesn't need to be perfect. All right, now we've done the sculpting, and we need to go to object mode. Now, skinning is really complicated and not complicated. It's actually fairly straightforward, and with most Blender programs, they've got it set up for you where it's just a couple button clicks and it's skinned. As long as you have the original weights. Now, there's also the hand painting version, which we could do, and we might. I mean, there's all kinds of times when you have to tweak the verts. Like when I was doing the fawn for you guys, I had to hand paint a lot of it because it just would not get the right vert weights on it. But anyway, you just select the mesh that is your base mesh, your weight generator, the one that has all the weights that you need, and you're going to copy those weights onto the mesh that you are working on. So we click on this one. See, now you know that we've got everything that you need, because when I go G, it moves around with me. And then you just right click, and it just drops it back to where it began, so you don't have to worry about having moved anything. And then, now, I don't know how to do skinning in Blender, the newer Blenders, because I've not messed with it at all. But you come in here and you go object mode. We're already done. You're in object mode. And you clicked on object, go up to script, and you go to bone weight copy. And then it's going to pop up this little thing, and you're going to want 0 because the number here doesn't really make a difference. Quality doesn't change it at all. So you just tell it, okay, it's going to do its little magic thing where it's copying from the mill body to the mesh that you've created. And it takes, depending on the size of the mesh that you're working with, depending on how many pieces the mesh is, and so forth and so on, it's going to take its time. If I had broke it down to where it was just the undershirt here, this little t-shirt looking thing, the tank top looking thing is under here, it would have took a few seconds to take the weight from the male body to the t-shirt. But we're doing the t-shirt, the little strap thing that's holding the spikes on his shoulder, the spikes themselves, and the chest piece there, that's like the fur chest piece there, and then the skirt and the pants. So it's going to take a little bit of time to do all those things. But now it's done. As you can see, it's no longer doing its thinking. All right, and then you click on the item, and look, it's got weights. Now, you can always, it's always a good idea to check to see if the weights are in the right consistency, because especially with this shoulder here, it's a very strong chance that it's going to be something weird, something odd, and like with the back here where it hangs down funny, there's a good chance that it's not going to be very good either. So I don't know why I'm giving you guys a tutorial. I'm shit. But anyway, let's check the weights on it. So you come down here where it says object mode and you go to weight paint mode. Okay, now all of it's going to be red because you're always going to have a BP torso, which is a good thing to have. You know, let you know that what is your torso and what you're not. Now, I'm not really good at this other part, but there's this part where you have to create something called BP left leg. And so you're going to create a new one, and you're going to go BP underscore left leg. And they should all be caps. Left leg, like that. And basically what you want to do is you want to select a piece of the legs. Since it's all in quads, it's fairly easy just to go like this. Shift, Alt, right click, and you select the entire loop. It's really easy to do with Blender's thing here. Alright, so that's what we want. We want those verts there. And this is why I'm not very good at this part. I always forget at what point you're supposed to remove the BP torso from that. Because if you do it wrong, it's going to cause like this weird gap thing where you have an extra BP torso or an extra BP left leg thing. If I'm remembering correctly, you select all those and you go to BP BP torso right here. And actually, you're not going to want this one. Now, this one you're going to want for, okay, hold up. That's left leg. Those are the verts you want from the left leg, and you're going to assign it 100% weight. All right. So you go you're on weight 1, which is 100%, and you go assign. Now, when you go to weight paint, look, fully painted. Now, what you want to do is you want to actually deselect the top row here, and then you're going to go BP torso, and you're going to go remove, because you don't want torso to have those parts anymore. So you're going to go remove it, and now you can't see it until Z for wireframe, and you can see now that those legs. Now the reason why you want that line to still, for some reason when you export, it'll act like that line is not weighted at all. So by having it weighted with both BP torso and the BP left leg on that one line where they meet, it allows it to still identify that it is weighted, or it should anyway, if memory serves me correctly. Memory's not always my friend. All right, now everything's got the BP torso and the BP weight. That's good. But now we need to look at the individual things. You know, look, you've got your calf. Now that may be good, but I don't think we want that on the calf. I'm pretty sure if you have it on the calf, it's going to bend real funny, but we're going to leave it alone for now because we're going to test that once we're in the game. But actually I can already tell you, because look at how it goes directly down the middle here. That's going to pull it all wonky when the legs move. We don't want that. So what we want to do is, there are several ways to do it. If you have the skeleton that has extra bones, which obviously I don't, I use the vanilla one. It doesn't have any extra bones, but if you have the one that has like skirt, back, skirt, whatever, there's ones that have like the skirt bones on them too. If you have that in, you can add those bones and weigh this to the skirt so it moves with the skirt animations that the game has. I didn't do that, obviously. Now, the way to do that a lot of times is also to have, like, import one that has the skirt weights or even one that has the calf. Anyway, to adjust this, to fix it, you would just either go in here and you got your tools right here under paint, and this only shows up when you're in weight paint. So if you're like in object mode, that's gone. See, edit mode, that disappears. It turns into other things. So anyway, when you're in weight paint mode, you come in here and we're gonna do this. We're gonna just subtract. And again, I'm not gonna get super fancy, super technical. I mean, just because you got to play around with this stuff. Just do it yourself. Now that wasn't probably one of the easiest ones I've ever seen to subtract the weights. Um, Usually it's like there's always one vert or two verts that just don't want to come off, and then it's just a pain. So what you can do also though is you come in here in the edit mode and you go select, and it selects the verts. And I was right. It said they were off, but they're still selected somewhere. So what we can do is we can deselect all the parts that we want to stay the NPC left calf. We want these ones to stay the calf. So we select those, deselect those by using the BB to bring up your circle select. And this is your circle select. And yours probably won't look so crazy as mine. Some guy sent me a file to edit for him, and his file was so massive that when I loaded it, it glitched my selection. Like my B box select and my BB circle select, it glitched them so they make these weird symbols on the screen. Anyway, so deselect it by going to circle select and pressing the scroll on your mouse key. Press down on your mouse middle button and it'll deselect all of them. And anyway, so you have these verts that are highlighted here still, and you want to remove those by clicking on this. Now, normally you'd be able to see in the weight paint mode, but we already saw that it didn't have. You can't, it's apparently like there's a double layer and you can't see the double layer. So, and that happens sometimes if you're doing things certain ways like this. When I made it a double layer, I actually do remember when I was modeling it that I made it a double layer so that I didn't have to worry about it being really thin looking and having a see-through texture or whatever. All right, so we go to, and then you go up, and it's going to be the left calf. It's going to be, of course, it's going to be the right calf. So you come in, you click on this little arrow, and it comes up with your list here, and then you go right calf. And look, I was right. So, and like I said, it's the easiest way if you're just going to be removing stuff. It's so simple. Just go into edit mode and make sure so that AA to make sure that nothing's selected, and then you go select for your weight. See, like there you go again. It's got selections. And then you come in here and you just deselect the leg that you want to keep on there. Now, and then G, if you're not certain or whatever, you can go G and it shows you what you've got selected so you know that for sure that you've got just the part that you want to remove. And then you just remove it. Now, but if you're adding them, so that's a little different. Like if you're wanting to say, oh, the calf needs to go up here. Now, of course, the calf does not need to go way up here, but we'll just say you're going to do that. Well, you're going to want to go into add. And then you can touch it, but sometimes that's not exactly the way you want it, or it's too many verts or whatever. So if you want to have it specifically this vert and this vert need to be added to it, right? Well, so then you can just come in and select these verts, and then you would just pick those verts with the you shift and right click on them, and you get both those verts, and then you would just come down here to assign, and bam, now you see how they're on there. Now there's also one thing you have here where it says again the weight. If you wanted to have just a little bit of it, instead of that max weight, because that's full weight, it's full 100% weight of the calf. So it would, whenever the calf will move, these two verts would just jerk way out here. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to come back in here, and so you don't want it to be full weight. So you want to go in here and you want to just click on it, and sometimes it'll be a bitch, but usually pop up this thing so you can type. And we want it to be 1.25. So you put in there 0.125, and I'll put it really low weight. And then you sign it, and bam, it changed from red to this light green. Now, of course, we don't want it at all, so we're just going to remove it. But you see what I'm saying. Now you checked your calf. Well, there's going to be your thigh. So you're going to go up, check your left thigh. Well, look at that. It's all on it. I'm thinking the best way to handle a skirt in this situation would probably be take the middle area of the skirt and make it very lightly both sides. And I think it would probably be best if it went all the way down as the thigh for the entire thing. I could be wrong. Sometimes I am. But I'm thinking, if I'm looking at it from the length of it and what have you, and the majority of it being thigh, I'm going to want all of this side to be the left thigh. So we're going to go into edit mode, and we're going to go AA so it doesn't have anything selected, or in this case AAA, because we want to be Alcoholics Anonymous. Anyway, Sorry, bad joke. So you come here and you select it like this. Now, and then we're going to go, and we want some extra verts. Like I said, we want to have all these verts down here be part of it. So, but we want just these ones. So we go, there we go, Alt, right click, and you select the entire little doodad. All right, see now, and there you go. Now, you want to since we're adding a new one, you want to deselect what currently is selected. And then I'm going to kick up the amplitude on it to 225, make it a little stronger, and then I'm going to assign it like that. But now what we want to do is, like I said, we want to make this middle row here, we want it to be both right and left sides. And you want to do it very lightly so that it has more of a ripple, like a cloak, like a shirt would have when your legs would move in real fast. You know, that it should have a slight ripple, but not be so heavy that it's like, oh, it's pulling away, stretching or whatever. So we go into edit mode again, and it's about here on it. This is about where we want to be, but we don't want to go all the way up here. But we'll see what we're looking at it right now. All right, so we want to have the underside as well. Okay, we got both sides. Now we're going to go into wireframe a little bit, and we're going to go sideways. Okay, it's going up really high. We don't want it. And the number pads, like 1 goes to back view, control 1 front view, 3's right view, control 3's left view, and 7 is top view, and control 7 is bottom view. Just in case you guys need any of that, because I'll be doing these things pretty fast without even thinking about it. All right, so we want only, now we tab in here so we see, we don't want it to go way up here. It's just too much. All right, so we're gonna come up here and we're gonna just deselect those verts. We want, yeah, right about here. And I'm thinking, like I said, we want to drop it down. Let's just drop it down to 0.125 again and assign it. And it's going to be very lightly. No, that's actually might be too heavy. So let's drop it down even more. And there's a vert right here. If you notice, when we look at it, it doesn't have any weight on it. I think that vert probably needs a little bit of weight, especially since we're doing the middle. It's going to be both sides. This one's got to have weight on this side. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add it 125. It can be the 125 as well. All right, looks good. Now we're going to remove it so we don't have it, because when we do the left side, we don't want it on there. It's going to be throwing things off if it's on the the right side, sorry. The right side. All right, so we have it, but I think 125 looks a little too heavy, so let's drop it down to just 0.1 and assign it at that, and there we go. Now we go on to the right thigh, right here. And we're going to assign that same strip to the right thigh. So, but now the right thigh spreads out a little bit, and it comes too far over. So I think we need to actually do something about that. We're going to have to remove that vert. So we go select, so it pulls it all up, and sure enough, it comes over here into the left side some. So let's go ahead, deselect those. Now, when it's just a couple verts that you're wanting to remove from it, you want to go and do the deselect mode, and I'll show you why. But also, you want to go ahead, and since we're also going to be adding some verts, might as well just kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Get this lower part that we want to add to it, add it, and it's being rude. All right, there we go. You get that lower part added that you want to get added. Now, you can go Control and I, and it selects the inverse of everything you have currently selected. And then you just go Remove. Now, so see, now perfectly, no longer down the side here. And then when you hit Control I again, you're back to what you had, and you can click deselect. Now everything that was selected and weighted to, that you already had weighted that you didn't want to mess with, now they're out of the way. And you can go and add weights to these ones. And I say, like I said, it's probably 0.225 is a good weight for it, and you just assign it. Bam, there you go. And that's how you would do some things like that. Now let's check out the shoulder area, because that's the clavicle probably. One of the other clavicle, sorry. Right clavicle. See, now, it's got some weights on this. Let's check out what type of shoulder things there is. They're not, like, they don't really have a shoulder, they have upper arm. So more than likely, the best weighting for this is actually to put it all on, for the spikes, since they stand out like this, is really to put it all on the clavicle. Because you don't want them bending with the arm, because that's going to look weird. Bone spikes don't bend in the down, and they don't bend forward. They don't bend at all. They may shift or wave or what have you, but they're not going to bend. So you're going to want to have to be only one weight on it. So it's good to have it like be the spine, of course, is going to be on it, because spine's always on everything up here. In fact, you're going to want to have the spine all the way across too, because it's part of the spine. So when you have the clavicle on it, you're going to go A, A, A. So you make sure that nothing is selected because you don't want to accidentally do this and add weight to something else or remove weight from something else that you don't want to. Then go select. All right, now we can come over here and we can go with a circle select and select all of the bones in the thing. And it looks like you can go ahead and do the 1.25 or 225 or whatever. Go deselect so it doesn't have that, and then you go assign, and it should be, yeah, that looks decent. It doesn't have to be perfect on that because again, we're not just, we're just setting it up. We're not actually having to clean it up. Now, if you can always tweak it later as things go. Now we're going to also go select and see it doesn't have hardly any of the bones, but it should have all of them because it's going to be pulling. I mean, it's going to pull those ones there. Those ones there, again, it's a bone. It's going to move with the rest of them. It's not going to bend or stretch or what have you. So you need to have it signed to all of that. So we can go deselect again to make sure it's just the part that we want to add and not something else. And then we go, we'll assign the 2.25 again. Yeah, looks good. There we go. Looks good. All that. Now there might be a problem here, but I don't think so. I think it'll be all right. Now, what we want to do, though, is we want to make sure that these bones, and we're going to go Control L so they're completely, apparently they're still attached to that. I didn't know they were attached to that, or did I select more than I realized? Just the bones. Okay, I must add something over here selected. Anyway, you got Control L gets the bones by themselves. Now, we want to remove, we want to make sure that it doesn't have, like, it's going to have the right upper arm, more than likely. Let's see, maybe not that one. Maybe the twists. It's going to have one of these is going to be on there. It's got to because it had the weird weights. Yeah, see, there we go. Right arm twist. We don't want that twist because it's going to make it bend funny or whatever. So we're just going to go in here and we're going to remove that so it doesn't twist with the right arm. And there we go. There you have it. Now go out of paint mode, and now like. You can collect all the items that are not going to be in this NIF because you're just doing the body NIF. So you can click all these, like boots, the necklace, the hood, the bracers, and H and hide them so they're out of your line of sight. Now, since you have multiple things that are needing to be parented to the skeleton, this is again one of the why it's really good to have the skeleton clean so that nothing's attached to it. So that you can do this. Once you select the skeleton, right click. Select the skeleton, Control I, and that selects all this other mesh. You don't have to actually make sure that you because like there might have been something small in here you didn't see or you forgot about. This way you made sure all these pieces that you were going to weight to this skeleton are connected together without having to actually be connected together. All right, now then you take it and you go Shift and right click on the skeleton. So now I have everything that, right there that was visible is now selected together. And then you go Control P and it brings up this thing that says make parent to armature. And of course that's what you want. You want to make it parent to armature. Now since you've already done the skinning, you don't have to do any of these other things. And really these other ones, they're good if you're creating your own skeleton and doing your own thing. You can use these tools for stuff. And there's been a couple times where I've had to do it for Skyrim to use the create from envelopes or create from bone heaters. But it's best to stick with don't create groups. And I think I may have created something there. So let's just back up and make sure that nothing's parented because I was talking and not paying attention to what I was doing. All right, now Control Z so everything's selected again. All right, and Control P, armature, and then you don't want groups. And it's going to make you do it at least, it depends on how many meshes you have here. So we have two. We have this and we have this. So since we have two meshes, it's only going to make me do that. Don't create weights, groups, or whatever twice. Now, if I had 4 or 5, it would have made me do it 4 or 5 times. Now, by moving this, I just remember that I forgot to remove the legs. So we need to remove those legs. That's just a waste of space. They're extra stuff. So just select them with the tool, and X brushes out. And then you can, there you go. Now, you click on the armature. That's the skeleton there. And you go File, Export, NIF, and just go pick a location. Like this is, like I said, this is armor. You can go Kale, and we're going to name it Kale Armor, but we're going to rename it because I don't want to overwrite the existing one because that one actually works. And this one is just a screw around test, and I don't want to have to do the stuff on it. So we're going to go Kale Armor tutorial. There you go, and export it. Now it's going to ask you all these things, and this is, take a good look at this. This is what you're going to want your setup to be for exportation on Blender. I don't know if the portable one that I told you guys to use will have the same setup or not, but let's just assume it doesn't. You're going to want to be doing export geometry only. That's the .nif. You're going to want it set up to skin. You're going to want this to be massive 1000. You want it to be solid. You're going to want no weapon body location, none. And then you're going to want, basically, on this one it's easier to look at what you don't want selected. You don't want default type selected. You don't want window envelope envelope map selected, and you don't want the BS fade notes root selected. And these ones you don't need. These are bad. These are for like if you were doing Oblivion, you'd want these because they do that. They want their stripified geometries and their strip stitches and all that. You don't do that with the Skyrim, though. Skyrim doesn't do that. It is a different system. So you don't need this. But you need force DDs, things, smooth inner object seams. Doesn't really matter, but it does help a little bit. It does some like nice little tweaks that you don't have to worry about. Flatten skin is okay. Export skin partition. I need that, and it's going to be. It should be set up to bones 16. And then combine materials to increase performance is a good one to have. And of course, you want to do it in Fallout format because that's what game type is closest to Skyrim's game type that is in the at Blender 2.49's NIF scripts. That's the closest one. So you want to do that, and so you have all those things selected, and you come down here and say, okay, now it's going to export it to the file that you just said to export it to. After that, there's a lot of NIF cleaning. I went over some of this stuff again in the tutorial, the handwritten tutorial I have up on the web page, but we'll do it now. Just so we'll show you both the beginning and end. I know it's a little awkward because I tell you I'm terrible at teaching. That's why I don't do it for a living. All right, come into armors. All right, now we'll just use the regular Kale armor and pull it up, and we'll show you how to do the setting up the NIF. Oh, look, it had textures on it. I don't know what textures I was using though. Weird ones. Anyway, they're actually not terrible. Must have been experimenting with something. Anyway, so, and since I was experimenting with something, we'll fix that real quick. But no, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so you don't want to run the original file that you're using as your weight or what have you. So what you're going to do is you're going to come in here and you're going to create. You're going to go up to here where it says save. This is your save location. This is your load. That's save. That's why it's near save. That's why it's near load. And you click right in front of whatever it is, and you type in blend or whatever weird naming pattern works for you. Blend works for me. Tells me that hey, this file's been set up for Blender. And then you hit it and you save it as blend. And then you come over here and you type in blend, and it pulls up the blend file that you just created. So that way you have no worries at all that you're going to mess with your original file. It's just going to be the blend file. Now we come down here and we take this here. Now you go here. Oh, sorry. Don't have to do any of that. I was doing the other side. This is the beginning, how to get a NIF set up for Blender, and the other one, which we'll show you in a minute, is how to get a NIF set up for Skyrim. All right, so when you load it in, your block details will be like this, and you click on the block details, and you click Sophia. Sorry about that. My niece is screaming around the house. Anyway, you click on the I headers and you come down here under user versions, and you got to change the version to 11 and then the second version to 34. Fairly easy to remember that. I've remembered it for years now. It's simple. 11, 34. You click on this and you save it as that, and then you pull it back up and it'll be, you'll notice that now it has no color, no textures, and all these little shader properties are there. These shader properties are Skyrim shader properties, and they're no good for the old Blender, and they're no good for Fallout 3, which is the reason why this happens like this. So you can just, the easiest way, now there's two ways. You can go right click on it, go to block, remove branch, and it removes it. But the easier way, in my opinion, is to click on it, and then go Control Delete, and it just deletes it. And then you can arrow down twice, Control Delete, arrow down twice, Control Delete, arrow down twice, Control Delete, and so forth until it's all gone. And then you save it, bam, and save it, bam. And you should be able to load that right into Blender. So let's test it out, make sure I've not lost my mind here. And we'll go import that immersive version. Now, I didn't save it into my blend folder like I normally do because I was just doing a test, but that's a good idea to make sure that you always either also create a blend folder for it so that you can just load it into blend folders. Now, you go meshes. Now, I created, because I'm doing a lot of work, I created an FL folder for you guys, and that's where it is at. So we go into the armor, Kale, and there's the blend right there. So right there, blend, Kale, armor, and then we import. And you want, these settings are, as far as I know, standard. I've never had to change them, except for one time when I was doing one other thing that was completely different than what we're doing now. And this is the only settings you need to really worry about, basically. Extra nodes, import bone properties, combine 9 nodes plus shapes into single mesh, and then deselect reline bone tail and roll. That one is actually for animation, and we're not doing animation. That's a different thing. That's part of this import animation, which requires you to do some keyframe stuff, and I'm not messing with that. All right. So we take this and we just say OK, because everything is already set up. It just brings it all in. And importing data, and everything works. See, now you can see there's the Kale file right there. Sorry, click on the, no, yeah, see, and I obviously must have separated it more because here's the I made the robe part, and then there's the original one that I was just showing you guys, and there's the chest, and then I'm still clicking on the robes, and there's the pants, and I must have made it like an undershirt version somehow. I can't seem to click on this, like I made a sash with the bone spikes. So obviously I separated it more for one main file, but when we were doing the testing. Now, like I said, you could do that. You could separate them all like that right there, or you could separate it as just the whole thing together. Whatever works for you in the situation that you're working on. Anyway, so that's how you do that for the importing them. And we're just gonna, no, we're not gonna erase it. We're gonna undo what I've done because we don't need that in there. It's not necessary for anything. All right, now we know how to do the, that's how you edit an if to get it to go into Blender, but now we need to edit an if to come out of Blender. So once an if has already been exported, so here's the Kale Armor tutorial, open it up. And it's very similar to what we did when we were working on it 5 seconds ago for exporting it. You come down to the NI header, click on that, and click that for user type 1, and you type in 12. Oops, I typed in 112 because I apparently went crazy with my ones. And this one is going to be 83. Again, it's simple to remember, but if you need to, just write it down so you'll remember it. Or just open a current version of one of the things or whatever. You know, it's as simple as that. And then you save it, and you open it again. And when you do, it's going to have all these things that were for Fallout 3 or older games. And we'll just, again, with a Control Delete, get rid of them. Now they're gone. Now you click on this thing. Now there's still a little bit left to do. You need to give it textures. Now obviously I messed up because I actually exported the body as, okay, there it is. There's the body. We need the body down here, I guess, or something like that. Now you see where it says dismemberment skin. We're going to have to do something with that. So you click on it and you come down where it says partition. You see there's left leg. So we did it correctly because it only made one left leg and it only made one torso. So why you do this is that you can actually set this up. Instead of having it be body weight, it's going to be, no, that's hand, sorry. And when you delete out the thing, it's going to give you, you can click on this little arrow and it gives you a list of all of the body types. I happen to just remember them all, and the one we want is 37, which is, no, not 37, sorry, 38 calves. And then this one you're going to want to change to 32 for body. All right, and now you come down to this one, which is your dismember skin. Now this one may have, yeah, it has a few more, but they should all be body because we didn't edit that one. And it doesn't matter because it is just the arms. Now, if we were, if I had been doing it for real, I would have had to actually create what is called BP right wrist. And then I'd have to do the wrist ones for where the bracers overlap on the arms. That way you don't have to worry about any overlap with the sleeve or whatever. But these ones you wouldn't really have to worry about because there is no sleeve. It's just the arm, and the bracers wouldn't have any arm piece on them. So you don't have to worry about it in that one's regard. But there is something you would have to do, just like I did with the calves on the left leg thing. And it is, the names you need to know is BP underscore torso and BP underscore right arm and BC underscore left leg. Those are the three ones you need to know for those particular purposes. And just like with the legs, you have to have an overlap where the BP torso and the BP legs have the exact same weights on the same number of verts. That way you don't create the weird little duplicate of one of them. Anyway, now, because this one doesn't matter, we don't need to have a left hand or a right arm or whatever. We can just go left, name it all torso, like so. Now, if we'd wanted it not to have the multiple ones like this, what we would have had to done is in Blender, we would have had to, on the body, we would have had to click it, and then we would have had to rename the entire, like delete torso out, right? So it's no longer there, and then we'd have to create it again, new, and go BP underscore tor, again, all caps, like that, and then assign it as max weight, because it has to be max weight for that, and assign it. And then it would remove the need for the right wrist, and it would all have been as, well, there would only been one of these bodies instead of two. I did not do that. So it sort of kind of remembered where the, like on the original body, it had the right wrist. It remembered it, even though it didn't remember it, if that makes any sense. It's just a weird little hang-up it has. And then so you do that, and now you've got your dismemberment on that, and your dismemberment on that set up for Skyrim. But now you still, you don't have any textures, and you have to have your texture path, otherwise it will be invisible in game. So what we do for that, we go ahead and steal a texture path from an existing mesh. And in this one, we're really lucky because I've already done it, so it already has a texture path already created for it. So you don't have to do anything really crazy. You just go ahead and get a texture path. Now, obviously, this one, I think I was still learning some stuff, or I was being really crazy, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I did not make these as... Let's double check before I say something really stupid and sound like an idiot. Select it all, then go into UV editor. No, see, as you can see how they overlap like this, that means I did not. I must have been, for some reason, thinking that each piece had to be individual by itself, and thus I made each piece have its own UV path. So, of course, our little experiment here is not going to look right because I did not do that again. But again, it doesn't matter. This is just a tutorial. If you have it where they're not all the same, if a mesh has different texture paths, you have to create different mesh pieces. Just like we did with the gauntlets, when we removed the gauntlets, just like we did when we removed the boots, just like we did when we removed the helmet. You have to make different texture paths for all of those pieces. If they have different UVs, they have to be a different texture, different mesh. If they don't have different UVs, if their UVs are all on the same sheet, where they don't overlap, like I had those ones doing, then you can do it as this, with just one thing. Now anyway, you just grab a body texture, and don't do offset, that was silly. Block, copy branch, and get that, you right click, block, copy branch. And then you come over here and you go block, paste branch, bam, there you go, it's in there. Now the reason why it's like that, actually, I'm not 100% sure. Shouldn't have done that. Unless, oh, never mind. I know what I did. Sorry. Block, remove branch. I copied that. That one should have went to this one. This is the male body. So you want to make sure that you're pasting to the, like, if you already have a functioning texture like we do with the male body, because it's already in the vanilla game, you go ahead and steal that from the vanilla game and add it to the right mesh. So we want to do this one though, and so we're going to click on it and come down here and block, copy branch. And it's going to look like crap on this because, like I said, the textures aren't right, but they don't matter. Now in a file, you don't want it to. You should not see, like, this is if you're testing something or you're just first creating it. Let's assume it, like, okay, this doesn't have proper texture, so we'll say when you add a texture file, it's going to usually be gray like this if you're adding from a vanilla file. If you're not adding from a vanilla file, it'll be colored. But if it's gray like this from a vanilla file, you click the little arrow beside the BS lighting shader property, and it pops up this little shader texture set. And you come down here and click this little arrow, and it comes down and tells you what the texture set. Now you're going to want the texture, when you're finished, when you're all done, you're going to want it to say something like textures, cloth, bandit, like that. You want it to be in this form, because that way, it doesn't matter if it's in a BSA, if it's in a folder, or whatever, it's always going to know exactly where the textures are at, because the textures are in the texture files. And you don't have to worry about it looking for the C program, Steam app. You don't have to worry looking for that, because not everybody's program is set up the same way. Some people's Skyrim is not set up in the C file. Sometimes it's set on the G. So you don't want that. You want it to be just a texture thing so it knows to look in those folders only, and not in the C program folders. So you come back here and you click this little flower here, and it opens up a path like this. And you're going to want just select whatever armor. Now, like I said again, obviously I did not pick the best armor to teach with, but you just select one. It doesn't matter. Shoulder, just for the fuck of it. I know, obviously it's not right, but it's okay. Now, you take that and you want to change this to where it says this. Now, how you do that is you double click on it. It pulls up like where you can get in the text window, and you can click here right in front of where it says textures, and you do backspace until it erases all of that, and then you can enter, and bam, now your texture set is all correct, and that one's already set up because it was the one from the vanilla game to a vanilla mesh. And then you can just save it, and bam, now this NIF can be put into Skyrim. And we'll do how to add NIFs to the game later. That's the end of the tutorial for now. That was a pretty long one, and I'm tired of talking.